It's Friday. It's a 3-day weekend in the States.
Hey Ben,
It's an,
Ben,
yeah,
what
yeah.
if we did that again now that I'm recording?
Sure.
Well, welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 321. My name is Ben Bumhofer. With me, as always, is John Jagger. How's it going, John?
Different energy, different energy. Hey everybody, it is Friday night here in Azeroth. I'm happy to be joining Ben at the round table, even if he seems less than thrilled to be doing the intro a second time. But Ben, it's not just the two of us.
No,
Uh,
it's not.
No, we have brought back one of our favorite guests for a
hmm
second visit. Manny, welcome back to the show.
Oh, I think you say that to every guest. Actually, I've watched the last couple of shows. I think you say it to every guest.
Well, we've really liked our last few guests, including you.
Exactly.
Why, thank you.
Yeah,
I get,
so that's the show. Thanks for joining us. John, now it's time for an hour-long after show. Let's kick him out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about some of my favorite Game of Thrones memes.
No, we're not doing that. But I will say, though, I am actually really happy to have you back, Manny. And believe it or not, I'm not planning on talking about what we were talking about in the Discord.
okay.
John, you missed it. There's a whole huge conversation there, which we might talk about, but it's not my plan to start off with.
I'm so curious. I wanted to go look at it, but then I realized that it's capturing Discord right now, and I would just be showing everybody. And so, I don't know. Well, now I feel like we owe it to people to talk about it. We've acknowledged it.
Well, I
Well,
mean, should we? Do you think it's something worth talking about?
I think it is. I've been having a lot of those kind of conversations, and I really wanted to pick your brain about this. So, for the people
Okay.
who don't know, like I commandeered the for Azeroth, sorry, rather the Azeroth Roundtable Discord, and picked Ben's brain about gearing
Yeah,
and
about something specifically that I just basically threw out there as like a bleh because I'm not happy with gearing.
You're not happy with gearing.
No, no. So I came up with an idea
Okay.
that some will think, Ben, you're crazy. Meanwhile, I'm happy with it. I think it's a great idea. But what if
Mm-hmm.
we got rid of all secondary stats? So here's kind of the reasoning.
What
behind it.
if we injected uncomfortable silences into the podcast?
Like-
I wanted to know what your reaction is.
There's like 5 minutes when John just thinking about it, like weighing the pros and cons, and we're just sitting here like, yeah. So here's the main kind of idea behind it. Since I raid a lot more than you do, I tend to get drops of gear more than
Doing
you
a
do.
real aggressive pitch on this, but okay, go ahead. Jesus. Like,
But
let me tell you why if you're about to argue with me, you're wrong. I don't know. I might agree with you, Ben, but go ahead, please.
well, no, but just the way that Azerite gear is, normal gear, every sort of gear that drops and everything. There's always your main stats, which definitely matter. I mean, casters are generally wanting intellect and stam, rogues agility. It's like that's why the flasks are the main stats. They're not a mastery flask that lasts through death for 2 hours, I'm an alchemist, so it's 2 hours. They have other things that bump stats up for a tiny bit, but it's never for a whole huge amount. The biggest thing, and I kept kind of going back to this, is when I'm playing a mage and I'm a fire mage, I need crit more than anything else. So let's say I'm going through, I'm playing my mage, a piece of gear drops, and I'm raiding, and gear, this is great. We're in a new raid, it's 20 item levels higher than most of the stuff I have, this is awesome. Oh, it's a piece of gear that drops that is a higher item level than mine, it doesn't have any crit, so I'm less effective if I actually, equip it and use it. But the thing is I can't even trade this to someone else because it's a higher item level than what I have. So it negates the yay I got a piece of gear because the secondary stat is so important that it's just it's meaningless to me at this point. And as I've been going through and leveling my monk, or not leveling, but rating and everything like that. Every piece of gear that drops that is nowhere close to an upgrade, but it's like anywhere from 5 to 25 item levels higher. It's just so much of a bummer that you just don't get to experience and use the stuff that you get.
All right, Ben, you mad
Mm-hmm.
genius. I've gotten your take. Manny, what do you think when Ben says something like that? How badly do you want to punch him in the face?
I don't want to punch him in the face.
For this reason.
For this reason, or for any reason he's given me so far.
Oh, I'll keep trying.
You could keep trying. I'll keep listening. But what it was that looked at that, and for me, I come from a completely different mind point. I
Mhm.
love secondary stats. I love that you can gear for haste, you can gear for versatility, and depending on the talents that you take, or depending on the Azurite traits that you stack, different ones become better or worse for you, or even depending on your gear level, it will affect where your stats are. When we began this expansion, your primary stat was like king. Everybody wanted their primary stat, and secondary stats were somewhere between second and fifth after that. Now we're reaching a point where the secondaries have become more important, and your intellect, your strength, your agility, that is further down the line. I like how that shifts because I'm constantly paying attention to that sort of thing. I do sim my character quite often. I have different sets and different gems and all sorts of things for it. It's part of the game that I play. So having that removed, I was just like, whoa, this is radical. But I don't want to be an elitist. I don't want to be like, no, you can't take away my game. I want to be like, well, why is it such an issue for you that there are secondaries? And so I just kept on asking questions and sort of like trying to get the mindset of it,
Mhm.
because I only have one point of view and I want to know other points of view. So for me, it's a big part of the game. I wouldn't want it removed because it's like removing entire talent rows and being like, no, you can only pick one of two talents now. It's like, even if some of those talents aren't perfect, I'd like still the option for them.
Mhm.
What if Ben? Your hypothesis intrigues me.
Okay.
I kind of like it. I like any hypothesis that goes, hey, here's an established system. We're burning
Let's
it
break
down.
it.
So I'm already you've already got me on board with that, but I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, well, but you still want something to distinguish you. As a rogue, I don't want there to just be the class of rogue. We've got 3 specs
Mhm.
that are damage dealers. The method by which we do that should vary and feel distinct between the two. But that being said, there's no reason why agility can't represent and be the primary modifier of these secondary traits and have it just be a single number that determines
Yeah.
that. And what if our spec communicated which of those secondary stats got the big boost from agility as an overall classification? So maybe as a outlaw rogue, agility is going to give me more haste than it would to an assassin rogue, but
Yeah.
they're going to get more crit out of the whole deal.
So, like, the secondary stat would still be there, just not completely tied to a piece of gear.
Right, modified by your spec. And then, because I'm like, hell, this is fun, let's just keep burning things down, we get rid of the talent trees. And we bring something back that's a little like crazier and a little more robust. And instead of it just being like, well, you've chosen outlaw, so you only get these abilities, and you can pick between these. What if Rogue had a big pool of abilities and you actually could mix and match them a little more than you can right now based on, talent tiers? Obviously, I've had seconds to think about this. There could be
Yeah.
holes in this theory. But you could look at it and you could say, okay, well, if you're willing to invest the points on the tier, sure, you can be a outlaw rogue that takes this talent that typically only goes to assassin rogues. You can go ahead and take it. and maybe those secondary stats act as modifiers on your ability. So maybe, for example, an ability does one thing with haste as a primary and does something completely different with crit as a primary. Now, I know that all sounds really complicated, but it's putting the onus on us to learn the system and control and manage the system ourselves through choice and through talent changes, rather than, well, RNG gave me a piece of gear I didn't like that doesn't work really well with my spec. Guess I'm gonna go do that raid again.
So
Um,
I just want to interject there. Like, I feel that when you do that, you are actually removing choice from yourself, because the way your spec works in regards to secondary differs when you're going from single target to cleave to AoE, depending on your spec. So even within the realm of a fire mage, where it's like, oh, okay, I want crit, for single target, you might actually want mastery for AoE. And you know what? I'm going to switch off of mage because I don't know that well, and I'm going to switch over to shaman because that's my bread and butter.
okay.
So if I'm a elemental shaman and I want to do AoE, mastery is actually pretty decent in that thing, because my chain lightning, it hits 4 targets, it can trigger an overload on each of those targets. The higher my mastery is, the more likely I get free spells, so that's great. But in single target, I don't want mastery. It's actually the worst stat, and if I couldn't control it with gear, then I would therefore be an elemental shaman. I'm just bad at AoE, or I'm just bad at single target, depending on the template that Blizzard creates by funneling all secondaries through a primary.
So, okay, I know I'm slightly interrupting here, but what I've got to ask is this: do you have an entirely different set of gear for every single pull when you raid?
I have 3 sets of gear. I have
Or that you switch between, like, hey, I'm pulling this trash group versus that trash group versus that trash group versus that boss?
based on the configuration. Yeah, if I'm doing a AoE heavy, let's let's just break it down into, okay, I'm doing a dungeon, and a dungeon, I don't like. I'm dealing with lots and lots of trash pulls. I'm doing a Mythic Plus. I have gear set up for Mythic Plus. If I'm doing a boss and it's a lot of single target, I have gear for single target. I'll even switch my talents and my gems for single target versus AoE versus cleave. I have different talent. I have, I think, 5 sets of gear for between 2 different specs, because the gear matters. And even if something is haste mastery and I hate it for my elemental, I'll love it for my enhancement, and it's an upgrade. It depends, really. Go ahead.
Here's the real problem, Ben. We're just not dedicated enough.
No.
No,
No, that's honestly what it comes down to, is that you are like, okay, like, you're not in, take this how I mean it, not how it might sound at first.
Always a
But-
good preface. You're always just ready for
Yeah.
just nothing but great things to come after
But
that.
okay, so you're not like top level player. That's the people who are doing race to the world, race to world first, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're probably either a step, maybe 2 below that, where you are like simming everything out. You're looking at it. You're doing everything that you can to be as effective in every single situation possible. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I want to make that very clear. This game is designed for hundreds of different types of play styles at this point, because there's so much going on in the game. So take where you are, drop it down about maybe 30 steps, and that's where I am. Drop it down another maybe 5 or 6, that's where John is. Just because you don't raid constantly. That's the only reason. And I mean, it's an entirely different dynamic at that point. Just like I can never, ever, ever, or will never know what it's like to raid Mythic, because it doesn't interest me. So I'm not going for that. Okay, this piece of gear has 3 more mastery than that one, but unfortunately, the 1 point less of versatility means that it's actually a bad piece of gear for me. Like, I'm never going to look at it like that. For me, And I mentioned this in Discord when I was in the middle of getting ready for work, so I couldn't really, like explain really well. But for me, looking at it in like a Dungeons and Dragons perspective of these are my 6 stats, this is what ups it. Hey, I'm this class. I know I need this is my main one I'm focusing on. And to me, it makes sense in this game to have that. Like I remember back in Burning Crusade when a piece of gear would drop and it was okay, it's got intelligence, but it also has I don't know, agility on it or something. I don't know, I'm making stuff up. Where those main stats were a lot more important than the secondary stats. The secondary were just kind of there, but you wanted that main stat to go up. That's what mattered because that was before item level was there.
All right, I might be now switching sides. I'm gonna switch teams in the middle of this. The ultimate betrayal.
That's fine. That always happens to me.
So
I get it.
I feel like okay. First of all, I feel like 2 things happened. One, Manny made some very good points about the value of cleave and wanting different things for that versus big single target burst. And yeah, that's true. And then he started to lose me a little bit with the multiple gear sets because I started to have flashbacks and I didn't like it and I wanted to ignore the dark times again. But then you pointed out something that I think ultimately maybe explains why things are the way they are and maybe what in my mind is something of the best case for why we keep why we like we're deciding this why they would keep it that way, which is that for someone who's rating at Manny's level or a race to world first level or even just high level that's really pushing themselves, whether or not they're actually, you don't have to necessarily say, well, I'm a mythic raider to, be somebody who's putting forth effort and really trying to get there. But somebody who's doing that is going to care very much about that. Maybe the problem is, just to play a little devil's advocate, is that
enough.
you care too much for the level you're at. Maybe you shouldn't be min-maxing to the degree that you are. Maybe you should take that piece of gear and go, you know what? It's not exactly the stat I'm looking for, but who cares? Because I'm just doing normals. Like, I don't have to worry about this stuff. I don't need 8 gear sets. I can get by with this. This isn't a big deal.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is that Blizzard has made item level so important in the eyes of everybody, and it really isn't that important. I have people on my raid team that have significantly higher item level than me, somewhere around the close to 420, and I'm sitting around 411. But when you sim the damage, I do more damage than anybody else on my team. So item level isn't it. Like, yes, you care about secondaries, and you're like, man, I wish this item level piece was higher, but I know the secondaries are better. That's not wrong. Don't think that that's bad for you. You should be like, yeah, I know enough to not be fooled by this item level. This is the piece that's good for me, and that's a mark of your intelligence, not a bad thing. The other part of it is that I know they talked about getting rid of reforging because they didn't like that people couldn't equip gear immediately and it was a feel bad moment. But I think people are realizing that it's a bigger feel bad moment when the gear just doesn't work for you at all and you end up trashing it. If they aren't going to bring the ability to trade gear or do kind of master looter, I think maybe reforging comes back so you can take that piece of gear and be like, I am going to put the stat that I want onto this and make it a piece of gear that I can use because it's a higher item level.
Okay, so two things. I just gotta jump in while this thread is still here. About item level, that's what's stopping people from doing certain aspects of the game. And I'm not saying like, oh, what's your item level? Oh, you can't come because you're not a certain level. I'm saying the game specifically saying you can't go to the and do this because your item level is low. It doesn't matter if you have the right stats or not. We just care about the item level. Anyways, that aside, Manny, you just said that it was a bad feeling to get a piece of gear that you can't even use.
That was a colloquialism. Okay. if you were to sim it and you found out how much it increased or decreased your DPS, right? It's not that you can't use it. Any item that you can equip that drops for you, you can use. So obviously it's a bit of a leap. But if you were to look at it and say how much it decreases your damage, or in the worst case decreases your damage, or if it's not that big of a jump, um, you're you can keep a piece of gear in your bags. It counts towards your item level to get into a piece of content, and you know you're going to sim better or perform better than somebody who just reached that item level because they equipped everything that dropped for them. So, in case if the game is barring you, which is like a rare occasion for going through stuff, if the game is barring you, keep a drop in your bag and you'll be able to jump into that LFR just because it's in your bag, because you have it on you. That's what the game's going to count. It's going to count your item level possible, not your item level equipped.
Here's what
So-
I don't get. If it was really a case of, yeah, we had to remove reforging because it felt bad to get gear and you couldn't equip it right away. If that was really the only problem, why not just give people the ability to reforge from their bag? They act like it had to be some system that you had to go to town and invest a whole bunch of time and effort into. It didn't have to be that. Why not give every player a arcane reforger tool in their inventory that they just right click and they can reforge a piece of gear? Problem solved. I got a piece of gear, I want to change the stat, I click it, I reforge it right there in the bag in the raid, and boom, I've equipped the new piece of gear that I got, and it's the stats that I want.
If
So
the secondary stats don't matter so much that you could just change them willy-nilly, why do we even have them?
They do matter.
they matter. That's hold on. Wait, Ben, you just said that like you dropped a bomb, and that wasn't even true. You're not saying that they don't matter. We're saying exactly that they do matter, and that's why you would need to change them willy-nilly because of how much they matter.
And again, that goes to my point again. So if you get a piece of gear that drops that doesn't have the secondary stats that you need, it's a bad feeling. Like, this is the entire thing that I keep going around to is I get a lot of gear that drops that is nowhere close to anything that's better for me. Maybe it's only because I'm a healer. I don't know. But it just feels bad when you're working hard and something drops and something's there and you can't use it because it doesn't matter. What's even worse is if it doesn't have the secondary stats that you want and it's supposed to be a much better piece of gear.
Well, let me tell you about the Arcane Reforger that you can now carry around right next to your Hearthstone, and it'll let you reforge that gear into gear that matters for you in a second. No going back to town, no talking to weird ethereal dudes. You just got it right there in the power of your pocket.
So I wanna talk about like an ideal, because there are ideals in the game. If you are a healer and you're, let's say, a druid healer, secondary stats are a real big boon for you. As a druid healer, if I want to push towards like maximizing stacking hots on a person and getting the most for that, then I'm going to stack mastery. I'm going to stack haste so that the hots tick faster, that they do more, because the mastery for resto druids is that the more you have on them, the bigger they hit for. But if I want to do like raid wide damage, I'm going to go for different stats. Being able to adjust your play based on purely on gear is a really great thing that allows you to be like, yeah, I'm going to continue playing my resto druid even though this fight doesn't favor this particular setup, and we've got 5 resto druids. We can be, oh, I'm going to switch 2 of them are going to switch to this setup. 2 of them are going to be this one. We can have that last guy being on a third setup that's kind of DPS focused because we don't really need that 5th healer. And I think that is a really great thing in the game if somebody's willing to push for that. And if all the stats were able to give people different play styles, that would be perfect. But right now, what we're dealing with is a lot of specs that are pigeonholed into one certain build, and therefore certain stats don't work for them, and that's why you hate it. If you were able to look at any piece of gear and be like, you know what, that's good for me in this situation, you wouldn't feel bad about it. You'd feel bad that it wasn't the piece you were exactly looking for, but you wouldn't feel as bad because it's still somewhat useful. But if it doesn't have haste, it's garbage to you, then anything that doesn't have haste is bad for you. That's not the problem with secondary stats. That's the problem with the way that they built your particular spec.
I'm 100% with this because let me tell you. First of all, I will pitch the Arcane Reforger again before this is done.
Oh, I'm 100% with you on that.
So, okay, here's the thing. I always used to get frustrated back when I raided and cared a lot more. And I would find myself in a situation where they were like, okay, well, for this fight, you're going to want to have an assassin set, and you're going to want to go assassination because crit damage is just going to do more for you in this. And my whole takeaway was like, but I'm an outlaw, well, but I'm a combat rogue. I don't want to do that. I identify as a combat rogue, and I don't think it's right for you to tell me what I need to identify as. I'm a combat rogue, and that's what I want to be. You know, I already get mad when they're like, "You're gonna use a mace." I'm like, "The hell I am." Rogues don't use maces.
Welcome to class.
So as it is, telling me to switch specs is like, no, I don't want to switch specs. I picked this spec. And I know a lot of times as they talked about class balance and what they wanted to do, they would throw that idea out a lot of like, well, we'll have this be really good at cleaving and we'll have this be really good at this. And I always hated that idea because I always saw the future of that being you need to switch your spec to match the fight. And it was, but I want to be a combat/outlaw rogue, and that's what I want to be, and I feel like that should be enough, and I feel like that's all I should be asked to do as a player. And I feel like if I had the ability to open up my gear and optimize it, should I choose to dive into this system to this degree, with, say, something like a pocket arcane reforger, then that would be a really useful way for me to say, oh, you know what, this fight is a lot of cleave required. I'm going to go ahead and modify my secondary stats because I suddenly care a lot. And I, with the same gear that I have, can set up that build without having to change my spec. Like, that's super cool to me, to be able to maintain my own class identity, but still be useful in the ways that I need to be useful. And that's maybe the direction that all this back and forth has pushed me in, which is, yeah, you know what? I think y'all sold me on reforging coming back, but like all the way back, like in a big way. First of all, stop making me have to go to town for it. There's no reason for it, Blizzard. You already changed the mount, so don't worry about it. Just let me do it from my pocket. Let me save. And
Like templates?
Yeah, templates for my gear, and just be able to flip it off and on so that you don't have to have somebody going, hold on, I need 10 minutes before the fight. I gotta flip all the stats on all my gear. But let me, instead of like the half measures that it used to be, let me completely switch out secondary stats for others.
Okay.
I can see that, yeah.
I will just point out that there is a thing called talents that people can change for different fights to be more effective for AoE, cleave, things like that. So it's in the game, but not to the extent that you're looking for.
Right.
And like overall, Manny, I honestly think it comes down to just it's not my level of play anymore. And like I said before, I'm glad that there are plenty of people who are engaged, who are able to, really dig in and find that best piece, know what you're doing and what each individual stat, means for your class. But yeah, I'm a filthy casual. I said it in Discord. That's what I am.
Don't worry, Ben. You're a couple levels lower from till you get to my point, which is a really great place to be. Because for me, I don't have to worry about eye level. I don't have to worry about secondary stats. I don't have to worry about primary stats. The only thing I have to worry about is, does it look good?
Yeah.
And honestly, if it doesn't matter because it only costs gold to fix the problem.
So I think that like a big thing is that, yeah, it's a spectrum of people who are involved in this game, what you get out of it. I honestly believe that if they took away the emphasis on item level, if it was just simple achievements. Go through this quest line and you can get into to the dungeon. And because you've completed this quest line, right, that shows that you can at least get into LFR. That kind of achievement would take away the focus from the eye level. But even now, because of like a number of systems where you can basically cheat your way through item level, people don't care about item level. If you try and pug into something, people are going to ask you for the achievement the second day it's out. People are going
Which
to
is
look
so
at
stupid too.
it's a reaction to this item level really actually doesn't matter.
Okay,
Right?
so what if we got rid of pugs?
No. I have met so many good people through just doing pickup groups. I'm part of AIE. I get to like be part of this huge community, but I still love meeting random people and learning things that I have no idea about before I even met them.
What if we made all achievements unlock at the end of the content's relevance?
No, I love going back and hunting achievements.
No, you
That's-
still get to, but while that content is relevant, you can't display it. So in other words, nobody can kick you out for not having the achievement.
Oh.
When it goes to the next cycle, you log in and you get a whole boatload of achievements. And there they all are. You can track them individually on your own, but you can't share them and nobody can see them. And it's just private little information for you. And nobody
Or-
can ostracize you or leave you out for it. And then it pops up at the end. I'm telling you, this is the solution. I've thought about it for all of 2 seconds. This is what we got. You can still
Let
pug.
me-
You can still
let me
run with
alter that.
whoever
Hold on.
you want. You just can't get kicked out for not having an achievement.
Okay, you still get the achievement, you still bwang it and everything like that. However, you can't share it until the content is no longer relevant.
There you go.
Yeah, people are going to find some way around it. I get what you're trying to do, and every single time people will find a way around it. It's just how it is.
I
They
just
Get
will
the
want.
Jurassic Parking
create
this.
gear score.
I want to go back to a world where people like have to determine whether or not the group is good or bad based on whether or not the person's doing well or not. Like
Based
I
off the
don't
first poll.
I don't yeah, exactly. Like people are going to be garbage no matter what. Like there are still going to be people that are like he stepped in front of the tank, kick him. And you're like, all right, well, geez, okay, but I mean, at least we were making a judgment call then. Now, when it's just like, nah, we're just not going to invite you, you don't have the achievement. It's like, yeah, and I'm not going to ever get it because of shitheads like you that have to ask if the achievement's out there. And okay, you know what? I'm feeling salty, and we haven't gotten hate mail in a while. If you ask people for the achievement, you are a shithead.
Especially
Official
if you-
Azeroth
no, no, no.
Roundtable stance.
Especially if you do not have it yourself.
Oh, if you
yeah.
don't have it yourself, then I'm not even joking. Like I'm kind of
Oh.
half-hearted. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's a reason. Probably you would ask someone for the achievement. It's probably fine, but I want to say something controversial. If you don't have it yourself and you do that, then I'm not even joking at this point, and you genuinely are a shithead.
Oh, we've all come across that group where people are like, yeah, I want this Raider IO score, and then you look them up and it's like, you ain't even there, buddy.
You have to, if you're gonna set the standard, you need to at least meet it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's my actual rule.
It's like, I'm a fresh 120 with an item level of 300. I want to get carried through heroic whatever. And it's like, no.
So, do you want my controversial statement?
Yes.
Oh, go for it.
Please.
Yes.
Let's all
Okay.
make controversial statements.
Get rid of Group Finder. If you got rid of Group Finder, right, and that matchmaking service, people would be a lot less inclined to get rid of you because it would be that much harder to get a replacement.
Go back to classic, Manny.
Hold
Like
on.
keep everything else, right? Keep everything else. All
So
the
if-
stuff that people want, the achievements and that, sure, so be it. But no, you're gonna have to sit in trade chat and put your group together like classic, like everybody is saying in chat right now. I see you there every class, and
when-
it's just like
When did you start playing, Manny?
I originally started playing in the beta.
The original beta.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
was I got introduced to it by a roommate, then got my own account. So yeah, I've been playing for a long time.
Okay, just making sure.
I
Just making
really
sure.
kind of I'm conflicted because I use the group finder a lot because I
Mhm.
don't know, I'm in a really big guild and I'm bad at asking them for things. I'm like, I don't want to bother them. They're my guild. I like them.
That's how I
No,
feel.
that's what the guild is there for.
it's
Honest,
it's such a weird thing because I'm always like, I don't want to put my guild through this. I'll ask filthy randos to help me with something. Um,
I raid with Ben at least once a week. I wish I could raid with you both nights, and I still don't know what character you play, John. I'm like, it's a rogue. I'm gonna hope that one day he like trips up and I figure it out. But I'm fairly sure you're in AIE. I just never seen you, man.
Oh
I
my
just
gosh.
never seen you.
John, you should just randomly show up at like one of these nights because we're kind of done raiding until 8.2, so we're just doing fun nights and stuff.
yeah.
So you should totally show up.
Wait, what's fun night? Am I gonna get gear out of this deal, or are you just raiding?
You're
like...
gonna get transmog out of this deal.
Oh, okay. Well, you had me at transmog, so all right,
Yeah.
I'm in.
No, we went
That
back
was
to
literally the last word came out of his mouth.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's when he
that's
got me.
that's what we did on Sunday. We started working on Jaina and did not have the comp for it at all. So then, like after an hour of just trying really hard and getting nowhere, we're like, let's go beat up Helia. It's been a while since we've been in that raid. So we went in. We ended up doing normal, heroic, and mythic just to get those Valajar like armaments or whatever for that one quest from forever ago. And then when we beat it on heroic, we got, hey, here's just an entire gear set look. Like everybody got one of those, and it's
Oh,
like cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something I want. We should do that. I'm 100% down with that. I don't even, I don't care about gear. Just give me appearances. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I would play through a special like solo only version of raids or whatever you want me to do just to get appearances in general. I
That's
don't
called
even...
going to old content.
Yeah, basically that's what it is.
I feel like that's the Mage Tower all over again.
Oh, the Mage
that's
Tower
different.
was so great. I hated it. I look.
It's so great. I hated it.
I did hate it, but I did it, and I was so happy when I did it. And I don't remember. Did I stream getting it? I don't think I did.
No, you were going to the next go around because you knew that you were going to fail, but then you ended up winning.
That's right. I was trying to remember because I knew that I did a couple streams where I played it, and it was... I thought that would be really good content. I was like, okay, I always feel like when I stream WoW, because every now and then I'll say, hey guys, I want to stream, what should I play? And like a freaking idiot.
Everybody always says WoW.
I always include WoW in the poll, and that's what everybody votes for. It's like that's why they started following me or something. But I'm always like, why? Why do you guys want to see me play WoW? It's not exciting or interesting. I just run around and do dailies, but apparently people like that, so it always gets voted. So when the Mage Tower existed, I thought, oh, well, now I finally got something to stream. I got a goal. I got something people can cheer for and all of that. But it ended up not being a good thing to stream because I just got really angry after about 10 minutes and I was just like, I don't want to play this game ever again. And then I turned the stream off and leave. But the night I got it, I was like, oh, it's coming down to the wire on this thing. I need to get it. I need to get it done. All right, well, I'll try one more time, and then maybe I'll stream the rest. And then that was the time that I got it, was the throwaway, I'll just do one more attempt.
I'm so proud of you.
Honestly, though, like, that kind of difficult content, like, when you succeed, it's all the frustration and all the effort that you put in that makes it just that much sweeter.
I wish I knew what that was like.
I'm sorry, Ben. I know, Mage Tower is a sensitive subject for Ben. He didn't do it.
Okay, so you've been playing since when, Ben?
Since Burning Crusade.
Since Burning Crusade. Have you ever gone along and done any of those, like, what we called the People's Legendary? So, like, Mr. Pandaria Legendary or Warlord's Rings?
Yeah, I did the Miss. Yeah, I did Warlords and Miss. I got both those legendaries.
Okay, so Mr. Pandaria had the part where you go along with Rathian and you have to, like, either heal for him if you're a healer or tank for him if you're a tank or just, like, DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Those were actually pretty difficult on curve, right? And, like, beating that was like an accomplishment. It was like, oh man, I did this, right?
As
That's
a
the
mage,
kind of stuff.
it was so easy to cheese that though.
Did you feel like
So
you knew your class to cheese it though, like to be actually able to be like, yeah, I can do
I don't
this
know.
now.
I just did it really well and really easy. Like
I
invisible,
don't
run over
know.
here. Then when you pop up, then the thing runs all the way after you and stuff. And yeah, it was easy because at that time I was playing my mage, and then yeah, I actually no, I got the legendary on my monk as well, but I think it was DPS at the time. So
I don't remember doing it, but I got it like and at a relevant time too. But I have no memory of like, I vaguely remember protecting Rathian. I vaguely remember that, but I don't remember being. I don't remember it being like a big obstacle. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe it wasn't relevant content when I did it. Maybe I did it
no,
after the fact.
it would have to be in order to actually have it because you
Oh,
can't go back and get those legendaries.
they turned it
Yeah.
off at one point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did it. I don't know why I have no memory of doing it, but I did it because I
So-
remember that was the big thing that I was super sad about leaving Pandaria was I was like, man, how am I going to live in a world where I don't have a cloak that just does random cleave damage as I'm fighting? Because that was the most wonderful thing in the entire world.
So this just is just proving the point again that I'm just a bad healer too. Not only am I a noob player, I'm a bad healer because I couldn't get that past that first part in the Mage Tower.
I think that you're giving yourself a little too little credit, right? It's a difficult thing. It's not something that you were supposed to get right away. There are some people who were getting it like first day it opened in North America. And I remember those
I was
tweets coming
trying
out.
still on the last day.
Okay, right? I like different people did it on different times. Like honestly, Jocelyn, who you've had on this show, who does For Azeroth with me.
Wait, who?
I'm sorry, we don't. I'm
We don't recognize past guest hosts.
yeah, like literally last week's host.
2 weeks ago, but yeah.
Wait, what? Who was last week?
Last week was this.
I thought that was 2 weeks ago.
No, John, you're mixed up.
Oh man. But yeah, no, like I remember, like for me, my big challenge was like I want to get this before Tomb of Sargeras opens up. I don't care if it was like tuned for somebody with like item level higher than me. Like that's what I want to do. And then for another one of my friends, they did it with all 36 different specs, and I was just like, oh my goodness, that's insane. And then there were people who were like struggling at the last moment trying to get it down. And then there were people who just didn't try because they're like, no, this is never going to be for me. And they went and did pet battles and were happy.
See,
The fact that you put
I-
yourself against it,
I feel like
first of
Manny
all,
was just talking
that shit
specifically
fired.
about you. But I also think there's some, not to say you didn't try, Ben, but I think there is some element of that because you did come to me multiple times and say, and I know you tried even after some of these times where you would say, I just don't think it's for me. It's not a kind of challenge I like. I'm not really enjoying doing it. And I mean, I put in a lot of attempts, and I don't know if you put in the same amount because I think you had
I know for certain.
a love-hate relationship with it.
I know for certain I didn't put in the same amount as you. I mean, that's it hands down. I still did quite a lot of attempts. But the thing is that it was always the thing that I had the biggest problem with is that it's a healing artifact. And man, you did the healing one, right?
yeah.
Okay. But you have to deal damage throughout the whole thing too. And that's where I'm like, this is stupid. Because you have to deal damage the whole time too. But even more so, it puts you in a group, but it's not actually a tank. Yeah, I get it's a challenge. I get it's supposed to be different than norm. I get that. And I realize I'm just making myself sound dumber and dumber as I'm talking about this even more so. But it's just it was frustrating enough to the point where I'm like, yeah, I just basically said fuck this. Because I was done. I didn't care. I tried a bunch and I sucked enough that it dissuaded me from doing it.
So the big thing about the Mage Tower is that it did stress your utility, right? You did need to be able to CC. You did need to be able to DPS. When you get into higher levels of content, a lot of what differentiates one healer from the next is not actually their raw healing throughput, but their ability to actually DPS in their off time. Like that's a big thing for like world first raiders. It's not that like their healers are all healing, because like if people are executing properly, you really shouldn't be healing. You should just be dealing with the unavoidable stuff, and the fact that people are so low geared that you cannot out heal this stuff. So it's just, can you top people back up, and can you damage people, damage the boss in between.
I think
So
the real problem is Ben never got any practice with that because he always raided with me, and there was no way I gave him any downtime at any point. I was like, healer's got it. John, you need to move out of that fire. Healer's got it.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I can see that when Ferd is actually, like a smooth running machine where that's happening, I'm constantly in there doing damage as well. I'm able to do utility as well and everything. But when there's moves that will just kill someone in one shot where I have no chance of stopping that because either my stun wore off or my CC wore off, where I'm in the middle of trying to redo that, but I'm running in, focusing on three other things, I'm like, no. So again, it comes down to I'm not that player and I'm not good enough.
I've got a different theory, Ben.
Yeah?
Wasn't Legion like the expansion where you were like, I'm now a healer?
No, that was Warlords.
Oh, never mind. Then I let you.
That was,
You
what?
Go ahead and keep whatever stance you want. Then I take it all.
That was
back.
very kind. Very kind.
okay, all right. How about this then? How many attempts did you do on Jaina to kill Jaina this tier? Just roughly, not exact.
15?
15.
10 maybe?
How many attempts do you think Method did on Jaina to kill Jaina?
Oh
this
yeah,
tier?
I know. They're under geared and
But not even just like under gear, just like the amount of attempts that they put
Yeah, I
in
know.
to like get something down is like hundreds and hundreds, right? People who got the Mage Tower on the first day, they probably didn't do it like on their first try, and like
no, I'm not
yeah.
saying any of that. It came down to, it was content that was just frustrating enough that it made me not want to do it. Because it showed me at the time that after all of the attempts that I made, which were quite a few, I couldn't even get past the first phase. So why do I care about beating myself up to the point where I'm pissed and wanting to throw things and destroy my computer because I keep failing over and over and over at something, when I could do something that's fun?
I'll say this about the Mage Tower, and I don't know on the healing one, I don't know on the tanking one. I can only talk about the DPS one that I did. But one thing that I took away from it that kind of stuck with me was how much that thing felt like feast or famine with attempts. Like, it didn't matter that I was getting her to phase 2. Like, the first time I did that, I was like, yeah, got her to phase 2. All right, we'll just walk this in. And then I would die in phase 1, and then 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 die in phase 1. And just over and over again, that, like, even when I finally beat it, yes, I had some close calls where I was like, oh, I was so close that time. But even the time I beat it, it almost felt like a complete surprise to me, just with the way that fight is structured and the way that fight was built. Like, there was an element of, I obviously was looking at the health bar. I kind of knew I was getting close, but there was still this element of like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to do this. Like, those fights weren't really designed to make you feel like you were making slow forward progress. At least I didn't feel like the DPS one felt that way. It felt like, oh, I just executed really well and therefore I won this time, whereas the other times I didn't. Like, that's ultimately how it felt, rather than I'm making slow and steady progress to eventually reach a goal.
So for the rogue one, like you, because there's like 3 different specs, and I'm not sure if they're all the same fight that you have to do. Which one was it for you?
It was the big imp mother that just summons a bunch of imps.
Got it. Okay. Because yeah, that's the one that I had for my elemental. But for the enhancement, I had a different one, and obviously for Resto, there was only one healing one. But I have to say that for my enhancement one, that one felt like RNG. That one felt like there were some times where like the abilities would line up in exactly the wrong way, and I was just trashed. And when I did kill it, it was half of it was like, okay, I've figured out 90% of this fight. The other 10% has to be just the stars align. And it was just doing enough attempts to get to that point. I think that yeah, if you get frustrated and you're like, I need to walk away from this, then yeah, the content wasn't for you. I'm totally fine with people just being like, no, I do not like getting frustrated for time and time again. That's why I don't play like games like Sekiro, where it's like
Mhm.
incredible difficulty. Right, it's just not my thing, and that point is different for different people. But I'm glad that that content is in there for the people who want it.
Yeah, I will agree with that. It's just frustrating finding out that it's not for you,
Yeah, that's
especially
true.
when there's something that you want behind that content.
Yeah,
Oh,
I found out that I am both. I'm both beings in the same body. It's content that's for me because I look back on it favorably. Obviously, I wound up being in a place where I can look back at it and go, "Oh, that was a good time." Ultimately, but in the moment, I am absolutely the person Ben's describing, where I'm like, one fail and I'm like, I'm never playing this game again. I hate WoW. It's garbage. Like, I just want to throw my computer out the window. But eventually, I felt motivated enough, I guess. It hit the right level. Like, I knew that was the way that was going to go, that expansion too, though, because they did the big preview where they're like, you're going to get different appearances for your artifact weapon. And during that slideshow before Legion was even out, they showed the rapiers that rogues get from the Mage Tower appearance. And I was like, that's all I want. That's the only weapon I want. I don't care what I have to do. That's what I'm going to do. And then they weren't in the game, and they weren't in the game, and they weren't in the game. And I was like, well, maybe it's the hidden appearance. And then they're like, no, it's the Thunder Fury one. And I was like, well, I want those too. And so I put a lot of time and effort into that. But, uh, and then eventually they did the Mage Tower, and I was like, well, shit. Like, it could have been worse. It could have been like a PvP thing that I was going to have to do. But ultimately, I was just like, oh, I'm going to be stuck doing this because it's the one thing I want to do. And I just eventually had a moment where it was like, no, I just have to get good at this.
honestly, like I want more of that sort of stuff in the game. Just these challenges that you can get cool cosmetic stuff. People love transmog, like you were saying, even if you are not raiding. And I know one person was like, "Well, if you don't raid, who are you going to show your transmog off to? You just walk around town, and
Yeah.
people whisper you and go like, "Hey, where'd you get that?" Because that literally happened to me today. But I just love just like those cosmetic rewards. If I could get a drop off a boss where I can get my fireball to look like their fireball, that would be awesome. If I could get like my spell to like now instead of doing a whirlwind, I do like bone storm. People would love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always said appearances with your different spell animations is the way to go for customization.
And honestly, and this is my take. I'm curious what you guys think. I believe, for me at least, I prefer more challenging content on a solo level than I do to more challenging raiding. And
Yeah.
again, that's personal preference. Obviously, there's mythic raiders out there looking to challenge themselves. But when I raid to be with my friends. And I don't want to spend hours and hours with my friends banging our heads against the wall fighting the same boss. When I get together with my friends, I want a freaking cakewalk so we can talk about anime without getting yelled at by our other guild members for not paying enough attention to what we're doing at any given moment. Get a bunch of loot and walk away from the experience going, what a great time. Let's do that again next week. And ultimately, rating stopped being that. In fact, most of the time it isn't that. But when it isn't that, and it's just that, we're trying and we're trying and we're trying, as good as that, we overcame something together feels, that doesn't feel as strongly in the group setting for me than it does on an individual setting. And it's denying me the, like, I'm just goofing off and having a good time with my friends, which is ultimately what I actually want to raid for.
Yeah.
So that's my personal take. That's why I wish we had more stuff like the Mage Tower for that solo experience, because I don't mind challenging myself. When I know that I'm the barrier, when I'm the point of failure, that's fine. If I'm raiding and I know I'm doing everything I can, or at least performing optimally enough to say, like, we should be clearing this content, but it's not on me and it's just making me get grumpy with people, like, that's not a great experience. That's not super fun. I just want to goof off and have fun and get loot for it and then go about my day. I like my challenge when I'm the only point of failure for that, because then I'm the only one accountable for it.
Yeah, I can see that.
I am in agreement that I love the solo content and the challenges there, but I also like group content that's got a bit of teeth to it. Like I do raid at a heroic, and we do mythic as well. So like I love that challenging content as the group thing. But yeah, when you're just like doing goof content with your friends, it's awesome. I happen to be lucky. I raid with like a demon hunter who carries me through a bunch of stuff and gives me the 5% spell buff, so I feel better about myself. But I like also just going in with like 5 people and doing like high or mid level mythic pluses and doing that, and that's a lot of fun for me. And honestly, I had a conversation where I was like, I really want more difficult single player content. I want like those little areas in the world that are filled with elites that you don't really want to go until you're like ready for it.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
want that back again.
I will say, being able to go into one of those places as a healer and just live anyway is really nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can do that.
You know what I thought the other day? I wish I could go back into that friggin' weird tomb maze thing with the lights and the fire and
Yeah.
carrying the colored orbs, and you're teleporting all over the place. Like, not to really
I would do
necessarily
that.
have to complete it, but I was just like, man, that was such a fun experience. I wish I could do something like that. And again, that was obviously my life as a character wasn't in peril or anything while I was in there, but that was a ridiculously dumb fun way to challenge just myself, and some content in the game like that. I would love to see more of that stuff expanded, where it is just something like, I can just go in there by myself. I get it defeats the purpose of an MMO to some degree, but I think you need both. Like, you want to see that experience. Sometimes that solo content is just as important as the group content, and especially at high levels, because it doesn't feel good if you're like, well, I want to play this game, but none of my friends are playing right now, so I guess I'm not going to. Like, I would say right now I'm experiencing that with the game Sea of Thieves. That game looks incredible. I have felt that way since I saw it. I don't know what I'm going to do in it, and I feel like that's universally been, at least people I've talked to's reaction is, yeah, but what do you do in it? And I'm like,
Hey, John.
yeah.
I watched the same thing that you probably watched that got you feeling into it recently,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling it.
Okay, so there's one. We need to find two more. But actually, even before that, like, this has been my feeling all along with that game, which is I'd like to try it, but the barrier to entry to that is getting 3 other people on board to be like, yeah, I want to try this game. That's,
Yeah, because if you're by yourself or only with one other person,
it's
it's
just
not the way to play that game.
it's not ideal. And I think we run into that in WoW as well. And I think as a result, sometimes you sit there and you go, well, okay, I don't feel like raiding, and I don't want to do a pickup group or anything, and all right, I guess I'll just do dailies, and there's no real challenge there.
Honestly, I like the single player content. It is great to have that sort of challenge that you can do when you can't put a group together, but that can't be the main thing. It has to be in an MMO that you do these social things. As great as like the maze was to go get that lucid nightmare mount, which is what the maze was for. I love the hive mind even more. Like that is where you can get 5 different people to do parts of it, so you can all spread out and get part of it on your own. Then you come together to do the next phase of it together. I think that's a good mix. The hive mind mount itself is a very unusual and unique mount, and that's really cool. And I think that those secrets are awesome. They don't challenge you in the like, oh, I've got a DPS this much.
Yeah.
But they're a great social thing, and that's what MMOs are about. They're about like the social nature, and that's
Well, see, and
again good.
that's interesting you say that, because that is social. There is a level of social to even the Lucid Nightmare, which was a solo experience. There was still a social nature to figuring that out or communicating with other people, or that's another case where I streamed and then had a bunch of people in the stream that I was talking to that I was like, guys, we're never going to figure out this stupid maze. We're going to be in it forever. I need to take a break. I need to go do laundry. You know, like, as dumb as it was, like, I associate a lot of that mount with being social, because there was talking to other people who did it. There was talking to a chat when I was streaming while I was going through it. But oddly enough, I didn't do the hive mind because, again, I heard there was a group element to it, and I was like, meh, I don't want to bother with that. I don't know what it is. I didn't look into it. I don't know how much group stuff is in there, but I heard there was group stuff, and I was like, then I won't bother. I'm not gonna look at it.
I still have my monocle. I still have the ability to do one part of it. I say we get a group together and we get you that high because it is fun.
I'd go for that.
There we
I
go.
can actually get something done in this game.
And I'm sure I can get two people to join us, and we can do that. And honestly, it is a fun piece of content, and I don't think you should miss it.
We'll see. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
We'll figure it out
We'll
sometime.
see. I've been thinking a lot about like MMOs and where you draw the line, and you know, how much of it has to be multiplayer and how much of it doesn't, because it is the thing that you hear the most when people are like, I really just do the solo stuff, and they're like, it's called an MMO. The M's for massively multiplayer. And you're like, okay, geez, calm down. But I think there's something to be said about like, hey, you know, I want a solo player experience in a game where I can communicate with other people and share some of these experiences and share this world with them, even though ostensibly what I'm doing is by myself. Like, I appreciate that I can come back to a hub and talk to other people about it or chat with people live in the game, because hey, what better window into people that are into your thing than people who are literally playing the thing you're playing at the moment you're playing it. So I don't necessarily subscribe to it all has to be group content, which I know nobody here is saying, but I don't necessarily subscribe to that any more than saying like it should all be solo, because I certainly don't think that either. But I've been running into a little bit of that because I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV, and that game has a solo story that you are progressing, and at a certain point it's like, yeah, go into a dungeon. And when I first got to it, I was like, freaking A, really? You're going to make me run a dungeon to progress the main story? You're going to give me a hard stop and say, you either run this dungeon with people or you don't get to continue the story. And I was like, I am going to quit this game right now. And then instead I did the group content. And it was fine. And I actually enjoyed it. And I was kind of glad the game made me do it. Although, here's my two complaints, even though I know we're supposed to talk about WoW. Here's my two complaints about group content in Final Fantasy. One, nobody told me how the limit break system worked, and I did not know that was a meter that was shared with my party and that they would be upset if I wasted it. They were not pleased when I used it on a random creature that we were fighting and not a boss. But I will say this in Final Fantasy's defense, that community is shockingly nice. It is probably the least toxic gaming community I have ever seen in my life. And they were like, I used it to kill like a rat, essentially. And they were like, really? I was like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know that was shared with you all. I thought I was just wasting mine. And they're like, no, that was for all of us, but it'll be fine. Just, you know, you may want to be careful with that in the future. And then after that, I got a little better explanation as we were going into fights. They're like, here's how it works. It's different depending on who uses it. So, you know, you may want to just respect whoever's going to use the system. And then, like, we got to the boss and they're like, now there's going to be ads in this fight, but we're doing really well. And even without that limit break, and I was like, oh, I still feel guilty. They're like, you could just focus the boss. It'll be no problem. And I was like, okay, great. This is fantastic. Every class just said in the chat, John lusts on trash. Yes. Accurate.
That's why he doesn't play anything with a lust.
Yeah, that's also accurate.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was all fine. The only thing I really don't like about that system is that they will give you cutscenes. I don't know if it's for everybody gets the cutscene every time or if it's just your first time in there when you have the quest, but you'll get a cutscene. And I am acutely aware of the fact that there are between wait, hold on. I can't remember how many people are in the group content. I think it's 4.
It's 4.
3 to 1 other people sitting there waiting for me to read this text and progress the cutscene. Because it's not a cutscene you just watch and then it finishes. Sometimes it's like, read, click through, read, click through. And I'm like, I'm acutely aware that there are people potentially waiting for me. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter that I'm not really reading it. I'll just click through so they don't have to wait for me. Like, I get very self-conscious about that, so I have no idea what happened in the last dungeon I ran because I was, like, clicking through the text so fast. I was like, okay, guy's evil, doesn't like me, turn to might and do a giant might. It's fine, we'll just go.
That's what YouTube is for.
Yeah, that was kind of the thought, was I would just YouTube it, but then it's not as cool because it's not your character in the cutscene. Anyway, I wish they didn't do that. They put a cutscene at the end. That's the right spot for the cutscene because then everybody's already gone and I can read about this fairy that got webbed up and she's old and kind of adorable and that can be on my own time. But when I know everybody's waiting for me to slowly read the text, I'm like, oh no, I gotta get through this as quickly as possible.
So basically what it comes down to is that Final Fantasy, as well as World of Warcraft, is a world just like our own, where hanging out with friends is great, but sometimes having alone time is good too.
Yes. Thank you, Ben.
I can agree to that.
Manny, thank you very much for joining us this week. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm glad that we jumped right into that because that did take the lion's share of the show there.
Yeah, it was one of those things where like I had something else I actually wanted to talk about, but it's fine.
What did you want to talk about, Ben?
No, it's so stupid. I'm not even going to bring it up anymore.
No, give us a tease.
No. We need to know. We'll tease next time.
We'll give you our quick hot take. Just tell us what it
quick
is.
hot take. Do you remember the main story on the Horde side requiring you to do all of the dungeons?
Did it?
For which expansion?
This one.
Did it?
See, I don't remember that. And I've been playing through on the Alliance side. I finally finished all of the quests. Like, I got the achievements for all the zones. I got the extra quest line. And, like, it makes you go through all of them in order to finish the Jaina story. Like, you need to go into every, or 3 dungeons to, like, find her. And then, like, the Siege of Borealis to finally finish the whole, like, main plot thing.
I don't know.
I don't believe there's a correlation on the Horde side.
I don't remember, but I know that when I was starting this expansion, I was so all in on the dungeons that I was doing them when I got to them. Like,
yeah, I kind of was too.
So,
I didn't.
Yeah.
Specifically was staying out of dungeons because they're slower rate of leveling, so I didn't want to add like a hour number 5 or 6 to my leveling time.
Yeah, because I had to go through Waycrest, and the 2 others that are over there. I don't even remember what they're called. But
Waycrest, the Temple of Storms, and Freehold.
Yeah, Freehold, Temple of Storms, I guess.
Temple of Sethralis, but it's the Shrine of Storms. My apologies.
Yeah, Shrine of Storms. That's what it was. And then Waycrest. You had to go through all those, and then to finish it off, you have to go through Siege of Borealis. And then I'm doing the Tides of War one. It's like, okay, now go to this one. I'm like, God damn it. So, anyways, I was just wondering about that. Anyways, Manny, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, John, and thank you for having me, Ben.
Of course. Where can people find you until the next time we have you on?
Well, I can always be found on Twitter. That is Tru Villain Manny, true without the E. You can also find me on my show about World of Warcraft and the lore therein. That is Faz for Azeroth, and I do that with Jocelyn, who you had 2 weeks ago.
Oh, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, well, we had that confirmed. And you can find that over at tgistudios.com/Faz.
All right. Hey, John, how about you? Where can people find you?
Hey, Ben. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, John. Howdy, hey.
If you want to find more of me, you can follow me on Twitter at John_Jagger. That's where I am. I will tell you where I'll be, probably. And, hey, a couple places that I know I'll be is here doing this show, but
Ooh.
also I do a show that's about video games, just in general, and it's called Core.
Core!
Jeez. And that one
Do you want me to stop doing that?
No,
I mean,
that
it's
one
kind
was
of a thing.
that one was just really intense and sudden. It actually startled me a little bit.
Core.
Heroesforyou.com is where you can find out about that show about video games. I also play Dungeons and Dragons, and we put it on the internet so that you can join in the adventure. And yeah, it's called There Will Be Dungeons. ThereWillBeDungeons.com. That's where you find out about that. It's a fun adventure in a brutal world.
Yes.
That's my whole pitch for it. Ben, where can people find you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter. I'm at Ben Bumhofer. I also do a show with Luda called Boxed Forts, which you can currently find right now. It is boxfortshow.com. Not to get too far ahead of myself, there is something in the works as well coming. I teamed up with Ryan Writer. You know what? I
Reader.
need to ask him. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh God, you've never said his name out loud. You need to say it now.
Yeah, just
So anyways-
remember, take a look. It's in a book. It's
Ryan
Ryan
Reader?
Reader. Yeah.
Okay, that works. Also known as TBK Zord. We've got something in the works. But this show, Azeroth Roundtable, you can find us on Twitter. We are at AzerothRT. If you have any questions, comments, want to tell me about how right or wrong I am about secondary stats, you can email those to AzerothRoundtable@gmail.com. If you like the show, let us know. Leave us a review. You know, iTunes is a place that does that. If you like the show, you can also go to our website, AzerothRoundtable.com, and find all of our episodes, leave comments, find a link to our Discord so that you can see the actual interaction that Manny and I had.
The real
John, you
one.
might- Yeah, John, you might want to check that out every now and then.
I have popped in there more recently than I have in like the past several months combined.
That is very true. It is, actually. But other than that, John, you have something about the show that you like to talk about every week. What is that?
Transmog?
No, the closing section where you always talk about something.
Oh, I see. You were doing a throw to me. I like it. Hey, everybody. This show's made possible by you who people all... Hey, everybody. The end of this show... Nope, the whole show is made possible by people who go to patreon.com/AzerothRT and help us out. Clearly, it is needed. Every week, we like to give a big shout out to the Murloc Club. That is Aaron Burschkaber, Brandon O, Gary W, Haster, Jesse O, Caleb M, and Sash. Thank you. You can join them or any level of patronage that you like by going to patreon.com/AzerothRT. Perfect. Nailed it. First try.
Yeah, exactly. First try. This is how we do everything on the show. We are live to the hard drive, as they say. Except I'll probably edit out where I said fuck earlier.
And twice.
And there.
And right there, too. With that, though, again, Manny, thank you very much for joining us. It has been an absolute treat, as always. I mean, it's the second time, so I can say always now. And we'll have you back soon. John, I'm glad that you were able to join me for the episode. It almost didn't happen, but I'm glad you were. And with that, everybody, till next time, and be good to each other.
This is like
Until
the
next time.
second nap-related incident we've had on this show in like a month.
Nap related? I didn't know this was nap related.
So Ben and I have a tradition, which is on Friday before the show, we will usually go out grab a bite to eat, maybe run errands if there's anything that we feel like doing. Just, get to hang out, chat, kind of get ideas for the show, which I say to make it sound like it's very official, but it rarely happens.
It is not.
So we do this kind of hangout, but the thing is Ben isn't available until a little bit after 6 o'clock our time. I get off of work technically at 4. Nowadays it's usually between 4:30 and 5, and I get home and I don't really have I don't have a ton of time before 6, so I'm like, I don't know, how do I feel? What do I want to do? And the answer is usually I would like to take a nap. As an adult who's very tired after a long week, I would like to lay down and go to sleep. So I'm very responsible, and I set an alarm for 6 o'clock to wake me up so that when Ben's like, hey, I'm ready, I can go down and meet him and we can start this adventure and kick it off right. I did that today, which I didn't have much time. I got home significantly later. I was like, yeah, a 15-minute nap sounds good. So I laid down for 15 minutes. The alarm went off. I turned the alarm off and I was like, all right, well, I'll be hearing from Ben any second. I put something on my iPad to watch to kill whatever time it is, because I never know. Sometimes Ben's ready like pretty much close to 6. Sometimes, it's 15, 20 minutes after.
Yeah, depends on my work.
It just kind of varies on what he's doing. So I'm waiting, and the last thought I remember having is, I need to be careful that I don't fall asleep. And then next thing I know, I'm like, crap, I think I nodded off. What time is it? And I checked the time, and it was, 6:40 at that point?
About.
And I was like, oh crap, because Ben has now called and texted. And I was like, I wrote back and I was just like, oh shit.
And knocked
sorry,
on your
I
door.
fell asleep. Well, hold on, because then I was like, well, if he wanted to wake me up, he could have come and knocked on the door. And Ben's like, I knocked on your door. And I was like, really? I slept through that too?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Like 4 times too. Like, it's a varying loudness levels. Just did a normal knock. I'm like, maybe he's in the bathroom and not by his phone. And then waited like about 30 minutes or 30 seconds. Did another louder one. Waited longer. Waited one more loud one. I'm like, okay. Then I'm like, okay, if he doesn't answer this one, I'm going to get worried, but I got stuff I got to do. So I knock even louder. I'm like, nothing. I'm like, okay.
I was very asleep, apparently.
You said it was a long week.
It was definitely a long week.
And I don't blame you. It happens.
I felt very bad about it, and still do. But here's the thing. Wait, hold on. I don't remember where I was going to go with that.
You wouldn't have had the energy to be worried about it if you didn't get your rest.
Clearly I needed it. I still think I do, probably. Actually, the funniest thing is not today. Last night, people are going to think I'm narcoleptic with these stories. So last night, it has been a really rough week for me. I will say this. But I'm sitting in literally this chair, watching something. I had something going on my computer, something going on my iPad, both. And I was just like, oh, it's been such a long week. And I just kind of went like this. And I was just like, ugh. I fell asleep like this for 2 hours.
Oh, wow. Man. Just leaning back in that chair.
I woke up and every part of my body hurt in a way that I can't properly describe. I woke up and it was like a system rebooting. I was like, I can't move.
Oh, wow.
It was bad. It was really bad.
That is bad. You know what, John? We should end this so that you can get some sleep.
Yeah, but we both know I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go play Final Fantasy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. You need to send me your name in there too, and I'll send you mine.
I just hit level 30, so I can be a Dragoon now.
Nice. I'm level 4.
Great. So we're, right there.
Well, there's the whole group up system where it lowers your level so you can play with me.
Well, I don't know. If I become a Dragoon, am I just the level 30 Dragoon, or am I a level 1 Dragoon?
I have no idea, because I played 11, not 14.
Okay, I don't know. When I hit level
Well-
50, I get to be a red mage, so...
Yay!
Well, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to watch Nevermore on her rogue with her warrior friend playing some WoW Classic.
Yeah, she's playing some WoW Classic. She's loving it.
Really?
Oh
And
yeah.
she's-
Yeah.
What? Okay,
Well,
we don't need
see-
to turn this into a
No, we're not going to.
shots fired on WoW Classic. I'm just...
Well, see, that was another topic I was going to talk about. I'm not in it yet, but John, the thing that I realize intrigues me most, and maybe we'll talk about this next week, is the idea of a brand new WoW where no one has money, no one has max level, nothing like that. That's one aspect that I never really truly thought about, but we'll talk about that next week maybe.
Sounds good. Until then, thank you everybody for joining us. We appreciate you. Go have yourselves a weekend. Get some damn sleep. Don't scare your friends because you're not getting enough. And don't fall asleep in a chair. Play
Unless
WoW,
it's a comfy
play
one.
Final Fantasy, play games. Have a weekend. Bye, everybody.
Bye everybody.
Bye, everybody.